My thumb hovered above the send button. A small, desperate voice inside begged me not to do it, but the craving for attention drowned it out. I tapped it. Hours later, my phone stayed eerily silent. When it finally buzzed, all it said were two chilling words: have fun. I expected an outburst, a heated reaction. Instead, I got a cold, clinical verdict that struck much deeper. That was the last thing Alex ever texted me. There were no exclamation marks, no sweet nicknames, not even a playful emoji. Just those words in a stark white message bubble, glaring at me from a blue screen, punctuated with a period that felt like a final nail in the coffin. It stared back at me, a digital headstone marking not just the death of conversation, but, as I'd soon realize, the end of everything. For 2 years, Alex had been my anchor. He was the kind of man mothers hope their daughters marry, reliable, gentle, and unwavering in love, like the morning sun rising without fail. He memorized my coffee preferences, held my hair when I was sick, and listened patiently to my endless office drama. His love wasn't loud or showy. It was steady and warm, something I, in my blinding ignorance, mistook for dullness. I craved sparks, drama, those heart-pounding moments straight out of a movie. In my warped, rom-com-infected brain, his calmness was a sign of trust, but a sign of not caring enough. I wanted jealousy. I wanted to feel like a prize someone fought for, not a partner he respected. And I knew his history. He'd told me about it 6 months into our relationship, over a bottle of cheap red wine. His voice was low that night, carrying a weight I hadn't heard before. My last relationship ended because of a lie, Mia, he said, staring not at me but at the wine label. It started small, but it cracked everything. Trust isn't just a part of a relationship. It's a foundation. Once it breaks, everything on top is rubble waiting to collapse. That was his red line, his deal breaker. And as I stared at his final message, a sick feeling coiled inside me. I'd smashed right through that red line. This wasn't a simple lapse in judgment. No, looking back, I see it for what it really was, a slow, calculated act of emotional sabotage. It started with harmless-seeming comments. I casually dropped Jake's name into conversations like a sprinkle of seasoning. Jake sent me this hilarious meme today. Jake and I totally agree on that new sci-fi show. You'd hate it. Every time, it was a tiny needle prick. A test. A poke to see if Alex would bleed a little jealousy. But Alex stayed maddeningly calm. He'd smile, nod, and ask about my day. His trust felt like this wide-open field. And instead of appreciating that freedom, I had this insane urge to build a fence just to see if he'd run into it. So I pushed harder. One Thursday, I arranged to grab drinks with Jake after work near his office. I didn't tell Alex. I let my phone die. When I got home hours later, Alex was on the couch reading, a plate of reheated dinner waiting on the counter. "Hey, you're back," he said, flashing his usual easy smile. I was starting to worry. "Everything okay?" "Oh, yeah, totally fine," I replied, tried to sound casual as I kicked off my heels. Ran into Jake after work. Grabbed a drink, lost track of time. You know how it is. I watched him, heart racing. I waited for a flash of irritation, a sharp question. "Why didn't you tell me?" Instead, he shut his book and said, "Sounds fun. Did you have a good time?" That wasn't comforting. It felt like a slap. I twisted his respect for my independence into proof that he didn't care. I vented to Chloe over brunch that weekend. "It's like he doesn't even give a damn." I groaned, swirling my mimosa straw. I could say I'm flying to Paris with Jake, and Alex would probably offer me a ride to the airport. Chloe dropped her fork, fixing me with a look that blended pity and disbelief. "Mia, seriously, stop. The man trusts you. He treats you like a grown woman. You're poking a bear that doesn't want to fight, and if you keep this up, the only one who'll get hurt is you." Naturally, I blew her off, told her she didn't get our relationship. I knew Alex. I was sure there was a volcano of passion hidden under that calm, and I just had to find the right way to make it erupt. I thought I was adding some playful spark. I didn't realize I was soaking the whole thing in gasoline. The final straw came on a Tuesday night. Alex was at his weekly basketball game, something I usually found cute. But that night, it felt like a personal insult, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my phone. Scrolling aimlessly, I stumbled onto a text from Jake. We'd been bickering over classic horror films, and he'd finally watched the one I defended. Jake, okay, you win. The effects and thing are still terrifying. You were right. Me see? Told you Carpenter's a genius. That blood test scene is legendary. Jake, total perfection. I still jumped, even knowing it was coming. My cat's hiding under the couch now. It was harmless, nerdy, platonic. But reading it back, that old, poisonous urge crept in, the addict's itch, the gambler's rush. I needed a bigger reaction. Proof. Before I knew it, my fingers were moving. I took a screenshot, hovered over the edit button. I cropped it, trimming away any hint that it was about a movie. What was left? Me see? Told you. Perfection. Jake, total perfection. I still jumped, even knowing it was coming. Out of context, it looked suggestive, intimate, like we shared something Alex never got. It was a perfect little lie. But even that wasn't enough. I wanted to twist the knife. I opened a message to Alex, attached the doctored screenshot, and typed, "Someone's making me laugh more than you tonight, winking face." My thumb hovered over send. For a heartbeat, a voice inside me screamed, "Don't." But I ignored it. I hit send. A dark, twisted thrill washed over me, a toxic mix of adrenaline, guilt, and wicked excitement. I leaned back on the couch, clutching my phone, waiting. I pictured his name flashing across my screen. A panic call. A barrage of furious texts. I braced for the explosion. I braced myself for a confrontation. For shouting, accusations, a burst of jealous fury that would, in some warped way, prove he cared. But when his response finally arrived, it felt like the exact opposite of everything I had imagined. For a few agonizing moments, I watched a little gray typing bubble blink in and out, appearing, then disappearing. He was typing, then pausing. My heart pounded against my chest. This is it, I told myself. Here comes the explosion. The hurt, the betrayal, the passion I've been so foolishly craving. And then, nothing. The bubble vanished for good. In its place came a short, clipped message beneath the bait I had so carefully crafted. Have fun. No punctuation that hinted at emotion. No angry retort. Just those two simple words, punctuated with a period that felt as conclusive as a door slammed in my face. I stared at it, the glow of the screen reflecting off my stunned expression. I felt the air drain from my lungs. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't how the script played out in my head. Instead of fiery anger, I got ice-cold dismissal. A wave of hot, confused anger surged inside me. The kind born from realizing someone refused to play the game you started. He was calling my bluff, refusing to take the bait. I hit the call button without thinking, pressing the phone to my ear. It rang once before flipping straight to voicemail. "Hey, you've reached Alex. Leave a message." His voice sounded upbeat. A recording from some long-forgotten sunny afternoon, a remnant from a time before I decided to set everything ablaze. I hung up and immediately started texting, my thumbs flying over the screen in a blind frenzy. "Are you serious, Alex? It was a joke. Come on, you're really going to act like this?" Pick up the phone. Message after message, all met with the same heart-sinking confirmation. Delivered, not read. It was like he'd thrown up an impenetrable wall, effortlessly, emotionlessly. And there I was, my frantic words stacking up on the outside, unanswered and unseen. The silence that followed wasn't just loud, it was deafening, complete, total. It filled the space where, only moments before, I believed the relationship still lived. I'd wanted a reaction. I got one, but it wasn't a fiery explosion. It was a silent, icy void that was 1,000 times more terrifying. That single, unread check mark wasn't some technical glitch. It was a silent verdict. The first half-day passed in a daze, a storm of self-righteous anger and bruised ego. "He's just being ridiculous," I muttered aloud, pacing the living room like a caged animal. "He'll cool off by morning." I dozed off on the sofa, half expecting to wake to the sound of his keys in the lock. Ready for the fight, I thought would lead to tears and make-up sex. But when morning arrived, so did the same cold silence. My messages remained unopened. My calls diverted straight to voicemail. A tight, unfamiliar knot began to twist in my gut. I drove home from my parents' house, where I'd spent the night rehearsing some weak speech, half fake apology, half subtle accusation that he was overreacting. But as I pulled into our apartment complex, reality hit me like a punch. His parking spot, the one he always parked in, sat empty. His old Honda Civic, his prized possession, gone. My hand shook as I fumbled with my keys, clumsiness betraying the rising dread tightening inside me. The apartment was unsettlingly quiet. The first thing I noticed was his keyring sitting neatly on the kitchen counter, right beside the untouched coffee machine. They weren't tossed there in anger. They were placed intentionally, a silent declaration of surrender. I moved toward the bedroom, my heart pounding an erratic beat. The closet door stood slightly ajar. I pulled it open and stared. A precise, calculated gap now separated my things from the empty space where his clothes used to hang. His work shirts, his 2 worn suits, that hoodie he always lounged in, gone. I bolted into the bathroom. His toothbrush, gone from its spot in the holder. His old leather dop kit, the one I gave him for our first anniversary, gone from the shelf. This wasn't someone storming out in a fit of rage. This was a clean extraction. Methodical, calm, devastatingly complete. He took only what was his, only what mattered to him. A man who clearly had no plans of coming back. Panic flared into a full-blown spiral. I started calling his friends, the guys from his basketball group. Mark didn't answer. His phone went straight to voicemail. David finally picked up, but his voice sounded awkward, distant. Hey, Mia. Yeah, I really can't talk right now. I'm sure Alex will reach out when he's ready. Before I could even respond, he hung up. I tried Sarah next, his sister, who'd always been so warm to me, but her voice clipped cold. Mia, I really don't think it's my place to get involved, she said firmly. I can't reach him, Sarah. He won't answer me. I blurted, voice cracking. I know. 2 words, heavy with meaning. I have to go. Click. It hit me then. This wasn't just a breakup. It was a total system shutdown. In a matter of hours, Alex hadn't just removed himself from my life. He'd effectively disconnected me from his. The network of friends and family that once embraced me, gone. Severed. I stood on the outside, staring in at the darkness where a light used to be. Desperate, I called Chloe, my voice a tangled mess of tears and panic. I played the victim. The blind-sided girlfriend, abandoned by a man throwing a childish fit. He's gone, Chloe. He packed a bag and just left. I sobbed into the phone. Over a stupid, meaningless text. Who even does that? It was a joke. A dumb, harmless joke. I kept going, spinning a story where I was a poor, misunderstood girlfriend and Alex was the unstable one who couldn't handle a little teasing. I poured out everything, every excuse, every twisted version of the truth, expecting Chloe to hand me the validation I so desperately wanted. I thought she'd agree that Alex had overreacted, that I was the real victim here. When I finally ran out of words, the other end of the line fell into a long, heavy silence. All I could hear was the soft sound of her breathing, mixed with the faint hum of whatever appliance was running in her apartment. For a second, I thought maybe the call had dropped. Chloe, are you still there? I asked, my voice uncertain. When she spoke, her voice wasn't soft or sympathetic. It was calm, icy even, and sharp enough to cut straight through me. Mia, she began, her tone firm and unwavering. That wasn't a joke. That was cruelty. I opened my mouth, ready to argue, but she didn't give me the chance. No, you need to hear this. You knew exactly what his past was. You knew where his deepest wound lay. He told you plainly, the one boundary he couldn't compromise on, and you didn't just cross it, you stomped all over it. You poked right at his biggest insecurity. Not because you wanted to test his love, but because you wanted to tear at his pride. Her words slammed into me with the force of a gut punch, knocking the air and my carefully constructed self-pity right out of me. You keep saying it was just a game, she continued, relentless. But you're missing the point. He didn't lose, Mia. He simply chose not to play anymore. He respected himself enough to walk away before you could wreck him any further. This wasn't some dramatic overreaction. This was exactly how a man with self-respect should respond. Then she asked a question that hit harder than anything else. What did you actually think was going to happen? The question hung there in the quiet, daring me to answer. What had I expected? I wanted a dramatic fight, a scene that proved how much he feared losing me. Instead, he showed me something much scarier, that he wasn't afraid to lose someone who didn't value him. Chloe hadn't comforted me. She'd held up a mirror and forced me to look at the ugly reflection staring back. The poor me story I'd been clinging to fell apart like a house of cards. The following weeks dragged on in a thick, suffocating fog. I moved through my days numb, checking my phone constantly, my heart lurching at every buzz, only to crash when it was never his name lighting up the screen. The apartment felt vast, empty like a museum dedicated to everything I'd ruined. And then, one morning, it arrived. An email. The sender, Alex. My heart shot into my throat. For a fleeting, desperate moment, I let hope swell inside me. Maybe this was it. The explanation, the olive branch, the invitation to talk things through. Hands trembling, I opened it. What I found was as cold and impersonal as a business memo. No greeting. No, dear Mia. Just a direct, detached message. Subject, apartment and belongings. Mia, this is to coordinate details regarding the apartment and my remaining items. The lease expires in 2 months. I've already informed the landlord I won't be renewing. You can either take over the lease or vacate by the end of the term. Please confirm your decision so I can notify him. As for my belongings, I've arranged for movers to come by next Saturday between 9 a.m. and noon. You don't need to be there. I've given them a key, which they'll leave on the counter after they're done. I'll transfer you my share of this month's utilities via Venmo. I scanned the lines over and over, desperate to find any hint of emotion, a crack in the carefully professional facade. There was none, just a checklist, a final severing of ties. And then I reached the last paragraph, a brief, almost casual footnote. On a personal note, I've accepted a job offer in Portland. I've already relocated. Just wanted you to know. Portland, over 2,000 miles away. He hadn't just left the apartment. He'd left the entire city. Moved on. The finality of it hit like a hammer to the chest. And then the closing line. For simple words that hurt more than any bitter insult ever could. Wish you well. Alex. So polite. So final. So utterly stripped of the love we once shared. There was no anger in his words. No lingering resentment. Just a door, quietly closed, locked, and bolted, with him already walking away on the other side. He didn't hate me. He'd erased me. Months slipped by. On the day before the lease expired, I was boxing up the last of my things. The apartment echoed around me, a hollow shell of regrets and what-ifs. As I was taping up a box, something caught my eye behind one of the shelves. A photo strip from a carnival booth, taken that first summer we spent together. 4 blurry snapshots. Us laughing, making silly faces, his arm wrapped around me, my head thrown back in carefree, effortless joy. I stared at it and felt the full weight of what I had destroyed. I hadn't lost him because of one reckless text. I'd been losing him little by little for months. With every manipulative test, every petty drama, every selfish grab for validation that stomped all over the trust he gave me so freely. That text wasn't the cause. It was just a final flick that sent the entire rotted structure tumbling down. For a moment, that old voice, the one I used to justify everything, whispered inside me. He could have just told me how much it hurt. But another voice, clearer and harsher, rose from deep within the honesty I'd been forced to face. He did. He told you when he shared his past. He told you every time he met your provocations with quiet trust. He told you what his boundary was. You just chose to ignore it.